This is the Launch Station, the only place you need to look for all things onboarding, implementation, and customer success. Tune in for insights from industry experts every week.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Launch Station. Today we have Cori Medler from BombBomb. She is the Director of Customer Success at BombBomb, and she leads the team and initiatives for both retention and expansion of BombBomb's managed customers. And she has a pretty interesting and unique background, which I'm going to let her talk about herself. Over to you, Cori. It'd be great to get a quick intro from you.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. Happy to be here. As you mentioned, I'm currently the Director of Customer Success at BombBomb, which is a video communication software, local tech company here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. But prior to coming to BombBomb, I kind of have maybe a semi-unique background where I really started in kind of this idea of customer service and sales in the hospitality industry. And through there, transitioned into nonprofit museums. Which is interesting that I think in hindsight, as I reflect on it, because museums are very focused on the visitor experience, which translates well to the customer experience in a SaaS or a tech company. And the other thing that set me up really well working in museums is your museum exists to serve your visitors, first of all, and you're always thinking about how to design that experience for them. And so you can liken that very well to our software as a service products as well. How are we navigating our customer through that experience? But the other component of it is museums are very recurring revenue organizations. Membership is one of the most significant revenue streams of museums, and that is a recurring revenue stream. And so again, that strategy of recurring revenue, how do you retain your customers? How do you build loyalty within your customers and earn that right to continue to retain and grow that revenue? And so it's kind of an interesting initial experience I had in museums that has landed me in customer success now. And all of these strategies and methodologies and disciplines translate. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at now and kind of a little bit about my background, where I come from.
Perfect. And I also know that through those stints, you managed a variety of things, right? Like you were looking at marketing at one point, sales, data analysis, customer success. You sort of done it all. So what do you see as your core skills or superpowers that define you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always been a learner, and I love learning ideas or strategies or methodologies. And so I really kind of done it all in my experience. I've done sales, I've done service, I've done people management, I've built out departments, I've done marketing strategy, I've done data analysis, I've done database administration, which is kind of like this really wide range of skills that I've done in the past, which again, I think is really what makes me a powerhouse in customer success, because customer success is really a varied discipline, right? You really need to understand all components of your customer's business to be able to deliver impact for them, help them derive value, and provide that really strong experience. And for me personally, I think, the superpowers that probably define me, given all of the roles and hats that I've played in the past, are probably my empathy and my data acumen. And I was thinking about this a little bit, and with empathy, it really helps me genuinely understand the customer experience and that perspective, which is, so critical in customer success. But then you couple that with being analytical or having high data acumen, and that enables me to be deeply curious and seek to understand at a deeper level. That then allows me to use kind of that empathy, intuition, as well as a data-driven strategy to it. And so the combination of those two really, in my experience, are really critical to being successful in customer success, because you need to work alongside, you need to be that strategic advisor and work alongside your customers to help deliver that impact and value. And when you can do that in a combination of data-driven ways and intuition-driven ways and layer some empathy on top of that, you can really be successful in it and have a lot of impact.
Amazing. That sounds super interesting, and I'd love to learn more about how you pull it off at BombBomb. So today's episode, folks, is going to focus on change management and the psychological dimension of onboarding, right? Because I think as you would learn soon about what onboarding and BombBomb is all about, it's not about just setting up integrations and configurations. More of it is about affecting the right change in the customer organization and among the users of the product. So yeah, I mean, very curious and waiting to learn more about this. And Cori, I know you have two separate teams, onboarding and customer success at BombBomb. So when did you break it into two sub-functions, and what's the backstory there?
Yeah, this actually predates me a little bit at BombBomb. I've been at BombBomb for 2 years now. And when I came on, onboarding and customer success management was already broken out into two different functions that break out. So BombBomb has been around for about 15 years now. And that break of onboarding and customer success management really happened around 5 or 6 years ago. What warranted it was the demand of the volume of customers, the new sales, the needs of our customers, and recognizing that our product is, like you mentioned, Sri, it's unique in that it's not just a tech product. It's not just a software. It's actually, there's a heavy psychological component to our product. In how we teach and onboard and get our customers to adopt this product is more than just integrating it with their current tech stack. It's about working to understand psychologically who they are and how do we overcome those objections with them and help them, understand the value and impact that asynchronous video communication can have. So I think it broke out for a few reasons. One, because of the volume warranted it. And then two, in that and listening to our customers and understanding what their experience is like, we realized that this requires a dedicated program to intentionally focus on maybe some of that discomfort we feel as humans as we start communicating with video in this new, different way.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is, volume is one criteria, and then, the complexity involved, right? Sometimes it, some other companies, it may be an integration complexity, but in the case of BombBomb, just the fact that it's a huge change for people in their behavior, adapting to a new, style of communication, if you call it that way, and that complexity requires attention and focus, and so it makes sense to have onboarding as a separate motion of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, there's the complexity of the product, but for us, we also have that complexity of adopting the product, and that is just a huge indicator. We really need a focused team on this to make sure that we're guiding our customers well through it.
Got it. So tell us about what the onboarding journey at BombBomb looks like today. What's the scale? What's the timeline? How many of these are happening at a time?
Yeah, we have a wide range of customers and industries and verticals that we support. So we do break out our onboarding managers by kind of our business segment of, that small to medium business, maybe our mid-market businesses or our enterprise businesses. When appropriate, we also have our onboarding managers specialize in the industry, because that really allows them, to walk alongside as that trusted advisor, speak the same language as your customer. So we have a lot of mortgage industries that we support and serve. And so when we can speak that language with them, we earn that trust faster. And because we have kind of this range of customers of small to medium business to enterprise, we kind of break out our onboarding managers similarly, where we'll offer more customized or bespoke onboarding for our enterprise customers that have more complexity of tool integration or larger teams that they need to implement this new technology with, and how do we train and onboard them. And then in the small to medium business or very small business, we have a much more kind of streamlined, straightforward onboarding program, if you will. And so in that world, it's a 4-week program. We go through integrating the technology with their tool stack, and then we go into the best practices and trainings around how to use video well and communicate well in this asynchronous form. And then in the enterprise space, in our ideal world, we would complete that onboarding in anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. But a lot of it really depends and varies on what our customers need. We always start our onboarding with a handoff call from sales. That is a critical moment to provide a seamless customer experience and build that trust in that handoff process from sales to customer success. And then we do kickoff or admin calls with our customers to say, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish with video communication, with this video tool? How do we work alongside you with that and set up the training to accommodate that? In the enterprise space, we'll go a little bit deeper there. Maybe we'll have a few admin calls. We always have our standardized trainings, team trainings, but we might customize those a little bit based on what we learn in that admin call. We'll have anywhere from 2 to 4 team trainings that we spread out on a weekly cadence, or maybe twice a week if that's what the customer desires. We've done on-demand training because that's, the customer's strategy is that they just want that on-demand training available to them. Or we've done train the trainer programs where the customers are, they have their own internal training team, and all we have to do is train the trainers, and then they train the end users. So that's a little bit of what that program looks like. It varies by our customer segmentation, but we always start with a strong handoff from sales and a strong kickoff call with the customer. We have some trainings, team trainings in between, and then we always end it with a strong closure with, here's what we've accomplished, here's what we want you to continue working on, and here's your next point of contact, which is our handoff to our customer success manager.
Got it. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned, the training on best practices for doing videos. And I'm sure, especially as you go enterprise, the number of people who need to go through that change is pretty huge, right? And,
Absolutely.
I do know change management is very tricky. So what are some of the things you've done as part of the onboarding journey to ease people into a new way of doing things?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of it, I think, comes down to getting back to the basics. And so when you think about change management for a group of 500 or 1,000, or even a group of 5, properly setting and managing expectations is such a critical piece to kick off the right tone, to kick off the right partnership and relationships. And so sometimes we forget to do those really basic fundamental things of how do we let our customers know what they can expect in this program. What role does our onboarding manager play? When do you go to them versus when do you go to other people? How are they going to support you through this journey? What does that journey look like? And then help set those expectations. That is such a critical component of change management. And I think we often overlook it, or we take it for granted, and we forget to really pause and intentionally call that out, and maybe even remind people about it throughout that process too, because we're humans and we forget things. So it's good to kind of just remind that, always have that visual, that roadmap of where you're going, and remind people this is where we're going, this is where we've been, this is where we're at now, this is what's coming next. So we find that to be really useful when we think about change management. One thing that we've learned is we're the experts in our product, right? And it's our job to help you adopt, help you see value with our product, help you use video communication in the most impactful way. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to get very, very directive and prescriptive. And so this is something that we've adopted recently that says, the strategy for us is when we have that admin kickoff call, we're going to seek to understand our customers' unique business challenges and goals. And then in that moment, decide what the initial use case will be, because video communication is a skill. And so and just like any other skill, whether that's, working out or advancing yoga practice or, learning to play an instrument, you can't learn it all at once. You have to chunk it down into the most relevant and important pieces first, those foundations first, and then continue to build upon those. So we've built that into our onboarding program that says, okay, trusted admins, our executive relationships, our decision maker relationships, we're going to get your buy-in on this. We're going to understand what your challenges are. And then we're going to decide together what's the one thing, the one use case that we're going to start with. And then we're going to build video skills into that use case to make sure your team actually has that strong foundation. And then we can go into depth and add on more use cases or add on more team members and things like that. And so we've seen that be really successful, because before you would just be like, here's all the ways you can use video, and it can be really overwhelming, and it can kind of lead to analysis paralysis. You have too many options. And so really narrowing it, making it super simple, and then chunking down those really critical pieces of information that can be easily absorbed and digested and built upon is something that we've seen some recent success with.
Perfect. And, you mentioned the psychology angle here. What are some key concepts that you think, people who are trying to affect change management should research? And do you have any resources or experts that you would recommend?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of being such a psychological tool in addition to a technical tool, we through years of learning with our customers and serving more than 60,000 customers, we have learned in our own data the most common things that come up. And a lot of those are psychological components of, I'm not comfortable with camera or with video. I'm not comfortable with the way I look. I'm not comfortable with the way I sound, or I'm not sure I'm doing it right. Or you think it has to be this more expert produced video. And through looking at our own data, we realized that there's this heavy psychological component to our customers being able to adopt video. And so we leaned into that and we said, okay, how do we help them overcome this? How do we help guide them through this? And so there's a couple points I would make here, because ours is can be such, a psychological change management as opposed to that technical change management. We look to leaders in that field to help us change behavior or to help people understand why they're uncomfortable with this. Some sociologists or psychologists or thought leaders that we look to are Amy Cuddy, who talks about, how do we make critical snap judgments, because we judge people on warmth and competence. And it's, it's a subconscious, maybe a subconscious bias that we have where we're judging people really immediately, but video helps us overcome those and display warmth and competence immediately. But how do you know what those are to do that? Is it a smile? Is it making sure that your body language is approachable for the recipient? Is it making sure you're making eye contact? In video, we often want to look at ourselves on the screen instead of at the camera, which eludes eye contact with our recipient. And so we lean on that a lot. We lean on Brene Brown and vulnerability a lot. We're all our own worst critics when it comes to being confronted with watching ourselves. But for the recipient, they don't notice any of the things that we notice about ourselves. And it's that ability to be an authentic human that really develops that strong relationship and trust and foundation. And so it's really critical when, you're reaching out to potential customers or trying to build relationship with existing customers, and video is a really powerful tool in that. Beyond that, regardless of whether you have a psychological hurdle to overcome with your customers or not, there's so much value in understanding the adult learning styles and methods, the psychology behind it, the neuroscience behind it, so that you can capitalize on that. And so some areas to think about in that are how do you get attention? How do brains work? And how do you capture and get that attention of your customers? And then how do you motivate them once you have that attention? And then once you motivate them, how do you deliver those quick wins as fast as possible so that you keep that motivation, you keep that attention going? And then how do you chunk those ideas and concepts, right? Our attention spans aren't incredibly long, and they're getting shorter and shorter, with more technology advancements. And so how do you chunk those really broad concepts into those bite-sized components so people can absorb, digest, implement, and see results from them? And then, of course, how do you reinforce that throughout the process? And I'm sorry, I'm going off a little bit on this because it's like really interesting to me when we think about the neuroscience and that onboarding component. Because another thing to understand is the connection between neuroscience and onboarding. And some of that has to do with the importance of first impressions. So what does our brain do when we make a first impression? And I mentioned that with Amy Cuddy, right? We make snap judgments about people. So how do we understand that and then put processes in place to create the first impression that we want to create? There's also confirmation bias and buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse sets in so quickly. So that's that piece of the sales handoff to the onboarding manager handoff. You need to capitalize on that moment and not let more than a day go by, because otherwise you're allowing buyer's remorse to set in. And ideally, you would get that handoff done in 30 minutes, right? And introduced to the next person who's going to guide you through that journey. But you don't want buyer's remorse to sit in. So understanding that neuroscience component. And then there's also the cognitive closure and change management, which we've already talked about a little bit, of how do you build trust through that journey and understand that changing behavior or implementing change management just has a lot of steps and components to it, because the human component is incredibly varied. So, Sri, that was a mouthful, but there's just a lot here to unpack that I find really fascinating.
Yeah, would love to dive deeper into some ideas that have probably worked for you, right? Can you share any incidents close to your heart that made you see that, hey, I'm putting in this new approach to create a better first impression, or I'm delivering our content in a different way to ensure we're getting the attention of the customer, and anything that stands out as something that gave you additional confidence that your approaches are working?
Yeah, I think this is going to sound like such a plug for our product, but it is actually, so when we think about, let's take the buyer's remorse, for example, right? You have a limited amount of time to capitalize when a customer purchases something before that buyer's remorse starts to set in for them. And the larger the purchase, the faster the buyer's remorse will set in. So being able to keep that excitement high, keep that momentum going forward, and really setting those expectations with your customer is so critical after they purchase a product. And it's too often that we hear that, sales, once they've closed won it, they step out of that process. But that's not what we do here at BombBomb. Sales will stay in the process, in that handoff call process. So once a customer purchases, we use our product, which is asynchronous video communication, and we record a video of the sales rep and the onboarding manager, introducing them, telling them what their journey is going to look like, what the next steps are, and we seek to get that done in less than a business day. And then we send that email off to our customer. And you can imagine that when you're dealing with a psychological component of like, oh crap, I just purchased a $100,000 product or $5,000 product. Did I do that? Should I do that? Buyer's remorse is starting to set in. And then you get a video with faces, with the people you're going to be working with, where you can exude emotion. You can see the excitement of the people you're going to be working with. You can put a face to that name. You can understand their personality. You get a visual as opposed to just text in an email that says, I'm excited to work with you. That changes the game. And that has given us a lot of confidence in how do we guide our customers through these critical moments. And we use our product a ton to do that, because video, when used correctly, and it's not the answer for everything, but when used correctly, video can be really, really powerful to build those relationships really strong, really fast, and help your customers feel like, you're there for them and you've got them and they're going to be successful with this. So that's one example. I'm sure I could come up with another.
Amazing. And then what have reactions of customers been like? Have you heard something firsthand from them about how, it was reassuring for them to get that video at the right moment? Anything you've been able to have as anecdotes which have further given you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when our customers, I would say our customers don't provide us their response to our videos. By the time we're doing that in customer success, they're used to receiving videos from us because our sales team is doing it. And we use video, when appropriate, to communicate with our potential customers, with our current customers. But we have heard feedback from customers, anecdotal feedback that says, the video really helps me understand what this program is going to be. It makes me excited to work with you, et cetera, et cetera. But the more interesting feedback that we get, and that we know here at BombBomb, because we've been in this business for nearly 15 years, is when our customers receive a response from their video messages that they send out. It's that recipient response that is so strong that says, oh, wow, this is so much better than a plain text email. I feel like I know you. I feel so supported and seen by you. And it's so nice to get to know you. And so I think that's the moment that really shines, is we try through our onboarding program to use video in the way that we're going to help teach our customers to use video so that they get that response, right? Like they experience what their customers will then end up experiencing when they start using video. And so it's kind of this beautiful circle, right? The circular process. And it's just the most fun when our customers respond and say, oh my goodness, look at what this customer said back to my video. Here's the results of it. Sometimes there's those quantitative results that says, I was able to close this deal faster. I was able to get an appointment set with this person I'd been chasing for 10 months. Look at what video did for me. And then sometimes it's really just the recipient feeling cared for on the other end. That's the win for them. So those are the exciting moments.
Amazing. Obviously reminds me of how we use Rocket Lane to onboard our customers at Rocket Lane. And likewise, you using BombBomb with your customers is cool.
Another thing we hear on that, Sri, actually, is our customers, when they see that we use our product, they believe in us more to help them adopt the product, right? Because if we're using it, then we know what we're doing, we know how to have impact with it, and we know how to help them use it, adopt it, see value with it. And so it just builds a lot of trust there when our customers are like, oh, you guys use this? And we're like, oh yeah, we use this all the time. So it's kind of that added element of earning trust when you use your own product.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, like, how big is the team right now from an onboarding standpoint? And do you have any, group rituals or practices that you follow to encourage experimentation and learning for the whole team?
Yeah, absolutely. Love these questions too. So our onboarding managers, we have 5 right now, 2 where we kind of use in the VSB, SMB, mid-market space, and then 3 where we kind of focus them on that mid-market enterprise space. And everyone knows the different programs, so we can, plug in and support based on the sales volume or the customer needs or whatever. But we have 5 onboarding managers, and we're organized in a way that our onboarding managers and our customer success managers, we're all on the same team. We all work together because that handoff, those relationships are so important. And so we have weekly team meetings where we bring that whole group together. But what's really interesting is we recently revamped our onboarding program to be more directive, to say, like, what's your initial use case? Let's design our program to be progressive in adopting one use case, building the foundations of video skills, and then layering in components of human-centered communication to really focus on that recipient value. So we revamped our onboarding program to do that. And in order to revamp our onboarding program, we took kind of a group design approach, a group design methodology approach, where we brought all of our onboarding managers together and said, hey, let's let's brainstorm, let's put everything down on paper. Here's what we're currently doing. What do we want to blow up? What's working, what's not working, why, what do you want to see instead? And when you get a big group in the room like that for a brainstorming session, it does not move fast. It takes a while to iterate and find that refinement. And so we actually found that the dividends and the ROI of slowing down to then later go fast has proved really, really valuable and fruitful. And so it was in, I want to say like end of Q4, maybe November, that we started this process of let's come together as a group and let's think through this and design our new program and what would we want it to be and how do we hear everyone's different perspectives and experiences and insights, put it on paper and then refine that and then come back to it and refine it again. And what it's done is create a really inclusive learning moment or learning area for the team, and nobody's afraid to have an idea or bring it up. There's a lot of trust. It's like, how would you do that? How would you do that? Oh, I don't like that for this reason. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about it that way. And so it's really allowed us to move more nimbly and iterate faster because we took the time to build that trust within the group from the get-go. And now they're running with it. They iterate so fast and they have the trust to bounce ideas off their teammates and implement ideas faster when it's impactful for the customer. So we do meet weekly on that. I join the team kind of bi-weekly or once a month, but they're meeting weekly on that to just soundboard one another on, what are you hearing? What are you trying? Is it working? Is it not working? I'm having difficulty with this section. How do we make this better? And then they implement improvements based off of that. And it's been really successful to build that culture or to build that team discipline of work, of that inclusive teamwork.
Amazing. And how do you measure what's working and what's not working from, all the ideas that you're taking from here?
Yeah, there's a lot. And, I think anytime you're going to measure the effectiveness of something, you want to look at it from a quality perspective as well as a quantity perspective. And so just be cautious of vanity metrics, right? We can so quickly and easily fall to our KPIs or our metrics to indicate the success of something. But sometimes when you focus so much on the metric, the team might be gaming the metric as opposed to actually providing a quality experience. So what we look at is both. We have because we just launched our new onboarding program, we have an NPS that we send out specifically about the onboarding program. And so we look at that, we look at our customer feedback, we look at our customer satisfaction throughout it. We capture feedback from our customers as they send it. We look at that. So we really kind of combine that qualitative data with the quantitative data. And for us, that really comes down to usage. So our customer in onboarding, we are wanting to achieve a certain level of usage, right? We want to make sure that we've integrated the right things, and then we want to make sure that we have our end users are using it at a rate that indicates adoption with our initial use case. And then we look at depth of use case to say, okay, they've adopted and implemented this first use case, they've achieved this usage metric that we're after. Now let's go after the next one, that next use case. Let's go deeper into that adoption. And that helps with the stickiness of customers. And it helps us know, whether we're being successful in this approach or not.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. We move to the next section of our podcast. So this is 3 quick rapid fire questions for you. Here's the first one. Tell us a song or a movie that gives you energy.
Yeah, this is easy. And if you asked anyone on my team, they would answer it so quickly. Harry Styles, Treat People with Kindness. Late to the Harry Styles fan club, but I am here and I am loving him, and his Treat People with Kindness song gave me life last year. I watched it so much.
Oh, wow. I need to listen to this one. I haven't yet.
Yes, I highly recommend it.
Okay. Here's the second question. There's one life lesson that you always share with your teams.
Oh, there's so many there, but I think I think the one that really is consistent over time for me as I've been in leadership positions is to really encourage people, whether that's our teammates, our individual contributors, or our fellow peer managers, is to really, really understand, get to know your unique strengths. And what that means is discover them, understand them, develop them, and talk about them. Because it really helps to build that inclusive, effective team, right? When we can all recognize that we bring unique strengths to the table and we all operate and play into our unique strengths, then we leave our egos at the door. And it's okay that you're better at that than me, because this is what I'm good at. And so let me ask you to help me with this. And you can just move a lot faster, more effective. You can be more creative, more innovative when you operate with that strengths-based culture. And so I think that's the one that I always encourage the team or anyone I work with is, who are you? Get to know what your unique strengths are. How are you going to develop them? Do they ring true throughout the years, or do they change? Because people come alive when we play by our strengths. And companies, the world, we all need people to be alive, right? That high engagement just changes the game for a lot of things. And when we can operate from our strengths, we come alive in a different way.
Beautiful. And this is something that I think, resonates a lot with me, because I saw this work firsthand at the previous company that I used to work with at, Freshworks. Play to your strength was one of the core values and was very strongly encouraged. Even, people shifting roles based on aligning with what they believe their strength was. There was an opportunity for that.
And there's a lot of research and tools out there now too, right? Whether that's research or studies that have been done on the effectiveness of teams with a strengths-based focused culture, whether that's assessment tools like Clifton Strengths Finders or, other, I'm blanking, but other assessment tools can really help you navigate and work on things like that. So
makes sense. Cool. Here's the last of the rapid fire questions. What's one skill you want to learn in 2022?
Oh, goodness. So many, but I think the most topical and relevant one for me is, again, this one comes up a lot for me, time management. And it's relevant for me this year because I'm going to be heading back into grad school, and I've got to figure out that time management to be able to do it all well. I'm also, time management, I think, evolves as your role and your responsibilities evolve. And I'm in a phase where I'm learning of this, the time management. I think as I continue to grow in my responsibilities or evolve in my leadership, then what I need to focus my time on, that evolves too, and how I do that is evolving. So I think that's the one that I'm going to focus on for the rest.
So we have one question from our community as well. So here it is. What do you do to ensure that all your onboarding reps are actually adhering to the best practices that you set up and delivering that consistent experience?
Yeah, that's such a good question and kind of a tough one, because and we've experienced this, right? Where when you don't have a standardized process or program, then it's a really ripe environment for teammates to design it themselves. And when you don't have consistency across the board, it's really hard to measure the effectiveness or the impact of something. And so we have tools that we use, right? We use Chorus, we can look at call recordings, we have peer-to-peer coaching, we can look at usage metrics, we can do all of that. And we can standardize our programs and making sure that people are using the same decks, that we have the same language, that we have the same vernacular, that we have the same methodologies in place. But what I find to be most impactful in this is to bring your team into it, get their buy-in. And so I'll take it back to when we slowed down to go fast, and we took that moment to bring the group who's actually doing the work, who is on the front lines, and here's the customer's response to the information. When we take that moment to bring the group together and build that space for them to design it together, if you can be there as the leader to help to help guide that process, to make sure that people understand the value of the consistency. They've bought into the program because they've built it themselves, and they understand the why. Why does it matter to be standardized? That's when you can have, in my experience, the most success with getting that whatever it is that you're working on standardized across your teams. And then you can measure the effectiveness of it and change it if you need to.
Perfect. Yeah. I guess if they're bought into it, then everyone is, understands why they chose that path and they're going to follow it. Makes a lot of sense to me. Here's a last question for our episode. What's top of mind for you in onboarding in 2022?
There's a few things. We are currently working on a mutual impact plan that we develop collaboratively with our customers, that we start at the onboarding process and then really hand off to the rest of that, to our customer success managers and the rest of our customers' lifetime. And that's that partnership, right? That strategic partnership that we create with our customers. How do we make sure we're documenting that and using that to influence the rest of their experience and journey with us as customers, so that we can understand who they are and deliver impact on that? So that's one thing that we're currently doing. That's on my mind, or is what we're working on this year. Another thing, and this goes back again to kind of some of the neuroscience around onboarding, is there's a lot of research and studies out there that indicate that the first 90 days are the most important to adopt a new behavior or influence change management and have, some stickiness with it. And so, as we talked about earlier, our onboarding program right now varies from anywhere to 4 to 6 to 8 weeks long. And it can go 3 months long, but we're not intentionally designing it to go 3 months or 90 days long. And so that's something, now that we have this really strong collaborative motion with our onboarding manager groups, we've posed to the group and said, what would the next iteration of this look like to design a 90-day onboarding program that serves the customer really well, because we know that 90 days is a critical timeline to influence behavior change. And it also supports our customer success managers really well, because one of the things that we've seen is that usage is so great in our onboarding program because you're so intentional with them about it, right? You're meeting with them on a regular cadence. You are holding them accountable. You're giving maybe homework out. But then as soon as you hand it off to a CSM, that usage might decline because a CSM doesn't have the same capacity to meet with these teams on that weekly basis, or it just might be a different type of bandwidth. And so if we can extend our onboarding program to be 90 days, be really intentional about how we design that in a progressive nature, then can we kind of support multiple goals with that? So that's currently what we're working on and striving for this year as well.
Amazing. I'd love to stay plugged into that journey to see how it turns out, and take a look at that 90-day journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on the show and sharing with us today, Cori. It was wonderful to have you.